Dear Lovetuner family and listeners, I have here Chi Kim. She is a team writer, but more importantly, she's the CEO of Pure Edge, a nonprofit organization that supports the health and the wellness of educators and learners by sharing simple strategies to reduce stress and improve focus. So as you can see already in the announcement, this pretty much aligns with what Lovetuner is doing. So this is why we are connected. Hi Chi, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to see you as well.
Yeah. You know what I think what we should do is for our listeners to make them more understand about frequency and vibration, we should have one quick tune.
Yeah, sounds great.
Over Zoom, but also in our frequency of love.
Sure.
Nice Monday morning with a nice tune, right?
My favorite sound.
I'm so happy to have you, and thanks for the time to have this conversation with me. As I just introduced you as the CEO of Pure Edge and the Lovetuner Foundation supporting Pure Edge, because I have to believe if somebody knows things better, there's no need to invent the wheel. So this is why Lovetuner Foundation is exclusively supporting Pure Edge on your mission to educate the educators, bring love and heart coherence into the educational system. It would be beautiful if you can tell us a little bit about your story first, because you have like a very interesting past. So you have been the program officer at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for the educational field, but you have also the principal of the Point Two Marine Science School. And this is where we originally met. And maybe you can give us a little bit of an insight about your journey and how we all ended up being even here and that you became a Lovetuner team writer.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wanted just to share a quick story before I even sort of get into the details of that. But I've been at the Pure Edge Foundation for 5 years. And we've been doing all these professional developments out in school districts, and we wanted to give a gift of some kind and just wanted to something small. We had these gigantic Overman spheres, but they're not great for travel. And I randomly opened a drawer that I had, and I found the Lovetuner in a tiny box. It was when you first launched. I didn't know actually that it was you. But I actually pulled it. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Right? We're trying to teach folks how to just activate their parasympathetic nervous system. And there's this beautiful Lovetuner. I'm reading through it and I start to tune a little bit. And it's been years. It's been sitting in that drawer for a little bit. We had moved across country. And I'm like, hey, wait, this is a perfect gift. So I emailed on the back of the label, Lovetuner. And I emailed and I said, hey, I just wanted to find out, I run a private operating foundation and I would love to see if we can get some of these tuners for as gifts for the educators that we serve. And turns out to exchange back and forth that, were you the principal at Point Two Marine Science School? I said, I was. Like, this is Petra. And so I think this is the Berg family, my kids, our kids went to Point Doom. And I think it was that sort of serendipitous moment, Sigmar, that I feel like all of these things are interconnected, right? And every day that I get older, I feel like the more aware I am about things, I'm not surprised anymore when things sort of happen like that, just being open to possibility. But it was such a great gift for me, just personally and professionally, that our paths had crossed. And now we're sort of back in this space where we can start to continue to help others. But it was just a really great moment for me. And one of those moments where I tell the story and it's kind of you get goosebumps because it's such a neat
point. It is. And what you just said, nothing happens on accident anymore, like also when you travel longer to life, you start, recognizing and being more aware, then that all these things have a deeper meaning. And there's a reason why people connect. And for us, it was just beautiful because we told you that we started our foundation and our focus was, we deal with suicide prevention and we work with veterans, but the educational field, and not only education as is, but it was a big part was also underprivileged kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started with this program, what we did already back in the days, where we went to schools, actually introduced mindfulness, introduced the
Right.
Lovetuner, and we had already a background. But obviously, with your background and doing this already, for us, it was a no-brainer to team up and support your foundation with our foundation.
Yeah, it was so terrific. Thank you so much. And I know that when we actually give these gifts out, we've been shipping them out, and just seeing when people open up the box, they can't figure out how to exactly open the box, but when they do, it's like a little discovery, right? And in fact, even the packaging, I have to say, it's going to sound silly, but even the packaging forces everyone to be present. Like, you can't actually do that sort of mindlessly. You have to open it. There's a little, circle. You push that. Everything is just sort of a magical gift. But it's been really sort of a profound experience for me, just trying to, just grateful, right? That's all I can say is I'm grateful. I've had a pretty long journey. I was born in Korea as an immigrant, came when I was 3 years old, and learned English through this public school systems, and then ended up becoming a teacher out in Inglewood, which is in Southern California. I was there for 9 years, and then I ended up working in some pretty the opposite end of SES in Tiburon and in Malibu. And when I was in Malibu, one of the things that I loved about the school, I was there for 9 years, and the piece there, I think we were trying to make everything connected, right? The marine science, connection to the ocean, connection to our health, really doing the teaching gardens with Kelly Meyer, and really starting to build a holistic approach to education. And I think the piece that always stuck with me is, how do you get disconnected pieces to feel like it's all connected, when if we flip the model, everything's already connected, but people try to disconnect them, right? So there's this circular way in which we've come back to the basic elements of connection. And it's through, our presence. We also know that just trying to get folks to think about how they present themselves in the world and what their energy does to others around them. We do know that the science is really clear, that highly stressed individuals, we shoot out a lot of cortisol, and it's contagious. And people who are really joyful, that's also contagious. And so trying to figure out what's the balance, like, how do you want to present yourself and myself? How do I show up in a space? What kind of energy am I bringing to a situation? And is it helpful or harmful for the moment and sort of the situation? So we've been sort of focused on that. But as going through and being a teacher, principal, and then working at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, sort of traveling around and seeing all the different ways in, how adults are really committed to their communities. And one thing that we saw with the foundation is that we started out as a student-facing organization with yoga programs and mindfulness programs. But in the end, when we started working with Mark Greenberg, who worked at Penn State, he did a series of research briefs about teacher stress. And it was the data of the teacher stress that actually changed our strategy. And so we really focus on the adults that are serving the children. We ask teachers to do so many different things, and especially now with COVID, it's been really underscoring how important their role is, but we need to take care of them. We cannot ask the caregivers to keep giving without caring for them. So it's sort of where we're at right now. And the Lovetuner sort of just came into a place where we wanted to give them another tool. Sometimes people learn mindfulness or learn breathing strategies, but they don't actually practice. But the Lovetuner, because it's that sound and just that it's a tool, right? It just forces them. There's a feedback mechanism for them. So they do feel it, they can hear it. So we're just so grateful that your foundation has chosen us and that we can give that gift out to the educators who serve our children. So.
Awesome. When you tell the story about the educational system, it's and we experience this, people are open to mindfulness in the last 10 years, a big shift in our society. So people understand how important it is to get from your head into your heart. People learn about heart coherence. But what was interesting for us was, we did stuff with animals. So we proved a lot of stuff where it's working. And when we published the first videos, about 5-6 years ago, about the education, and we filmed a mindfulness class where we tuned, I have never gotten so much hate comments. I mean, a lot of people loved it, but it was very, very, actually for me, surprising to see that people in the field where it's the most important, our young generation, to open their hearts to the educated mindfulness, where people are so restrictively against it, like we believe in all this stuff. When we get older, we have traumas. People say maybe you should meditate, maybe you should learn a breathing exercise. But our children, which are so like have so much little layers compared to us, their hearts are open, their minds are open, and here people getting like, oh, why are you doing this to kids? But you see the benefits, you see it on both sides, you see it on the educator sides and the kids, where it's, in my opinion, even easier to open their hearts. And what do you think? What is this kind of resentment what people still have to not letting go of this old learning system that didn't work out in the first place?
I mean, all of it is based on fear, right?
Yeah.
You try and bring into a space some different kind of energy. And I think a lot of it, I think the fear and sort of the anger comes from a place where they think that you're teaching them religion, right? As if using your tools, your nose, your lungs, your breath, as if that's some sort of a religious process. And I think that part, creates a lot of tension. One of the things that we end up doing, because we serve both blue states, red states, we're in California, we're in Texas and Tennessee, New Jersey. We serve a large and a diverse population of teachers and students. And because we come from a sort of the framing of neuroscience and stress, it's universal. As soon as we start to approach a language that makes it feel a little bit more spiritual, I think that's where people get into trouble, because it's supposed to be a secular process for any kind of mindfulness or mindful movement, but we really specifically focus on stress and the neuroscience. And we find that when we present the data, when we present sort of the sort of scientific background information, there's a lot less resistance, because it's physiology, right? It's something physiological that's happening to you. It's not some sort of, woo-woo stuff that people talk about. There is data, the same way that you've done, the sound waves and the frequency, right? There's data on that. There's data on what happens when you activate your parasympathetic nervous system. And, you've got folks who've been doing this for thousands of years, just focusing on their breath work. But it's turned into something different, I think, as it's been translated into Western, experience. So a lot of it, I think, honestly, Sigmar, I think it's just fear. And, just that, we all have a negativity bias, right? It's ingrained in our DNA. Like, we're born to be negative, look for trouble and danger.
Yeah, you're right. Now, I mean, what we have seen, and this is like so funny, but like, I mean, obviously it's a mindfulness, also a spiritual tool, because the frequency, the 528 hertz frequency, which is also called the miracle frequency. But if you look at the way the frequency is working, it's all profound physics. So this is why we feel stress relief, because the water molecules get aligned in our body, gives us the sensation of relaxation. Then the breath work, what the Lovetuner does, it gives you an audible feedback. So even with zero education in meditation or breathing, it works right away. And you told me that you have often teachers which are on school boards, and even like you told me you've been in Sacramento. So people who really literally actually run our educational system, the executive force, they are sometimes a little bit hesitant when they do it.
Yeah.
But they get it right away, because it just happens, because it's a physiological exercise you're doing.
Yeah.
And you told me one thing, and this made me actually happy, that they all start to kind of giggle and started to laugh about it. And it's like in a good way, it makes them happy.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. They do get that, and then they start to blow on it. And then, I think the running joke is that it looks like we're, smoking a doobie. I'm like, what? No, that's not what this is. But I think, once you start to do it, all the giggles after the giggling, after the sort of embarrassment, there's some interesting thing that happens, when people start to do something new, that nervous laughter starts to show up. Then once they actually engage in the process and start to hear it and listen and really take in the quiet, and then listen to the tune, there's something that forces them. It just is an automatic response. And I think you're right, Sigmar. It's the feedback. It's the feedback of the sound that most people who have a hard time meditating or just staying focused in the quiet, that feedback is actually really helpful for them because they haven't been able to do, and they might have tried meditation, they might have tried, some other kinds of things, but they were never able to really quiet the mind. And with the Lovetuner, because you're getting that audible feedback, you kind of are forced to stay in the present, whether you're trying to or not. And I think that's one of the things that's sort of beautiful about the Lovetuner, is because it's that audible feedback is something that people, it seems to resonate.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah. I want to point something out for our listeners too, and this is actually your mission statement with Pure Edge Inc. That you actually have this belief that educators and learners deserve a strategy to combat actually stress and support the development of a social, emotional, academic learning competences. So, and you say one thing, you say open the heart and the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about education, nobody talks about the heart. So it's kind of like in our society, it's something what doesn't fit together. But we know that the intelligence of the heart and the heart coherence is even stronger than our brain coherence.
Yeah.
And so this is a new aspect for educators too, right? Because everything what has to do with education stops at the mind.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're seeing all of the fallout of that, right? You're seeing high anxiety, you're seeing the highest rates of suicide we've ever had in this country of kids, starting at age 10, really all the way through like 24, 25. And you're seeing all of these sort of unintended consequences of just focusing on academics.
Yeah.
That, it's almost as if they've separated the brain and the heart connection. And we know all the research is very clear that the emotions are connected to learning. And if you don't trust the person you're with, if you don't have good relationships, that learning isn't going to happen no matter what kind of lesson plan you have, right? It's a disconnection of the heart and mind. And it really is, it's always been connected. But for some, and really, I think just from federal policy all the way down, they've been forcing people to choose. And I think right now, in the last 15, 20 years, that choice of separating the mind and the heart is actually no longer really being pushed. So they've got new federal policy. Social emotional learning is really embedded into schooling. And I think the biggest challenge is we got to figure out how to take care of our teachers so that the teachers feel like we're not doing more things to them, but we're really in support of making sure that they are whole people so that they are showing up more content and at least more present, right? But we don't want to add layers of complication.
Yeah, because the stress is vice versa, like the stress goes to the educators, goes to the kids, and it's like a cycle that needs to be stopped basically. And and as soon as we see the quality of our hearts when we connect from heart to heart and we explore this curiosity, then the teacher is not the classical teacher anymore. It becomes kind of like a partner in what they're doing. And I think this will relieve a lot of stress for educators as well, because when they're not seen as this one person out there trying to communicate whatever they need to learn, but if they can have this heart coherence and connect in a frequency, that there's a different understanding. And this is, we didn't do it on such a big scale as you do, but we had hundreds of kids that we educated with tuning. And what happened in all those classes was one thing, besides the grades went up, but what completely stopped is bullying. Because, and this is what I experienced with a lot of other people that I tuned with, and there have been thousands in the couple of years that I'm running Lovetuner now. But it's as soon as you connect from heart to heart, no matter if it's your best friend or if it's somebody that you don't know, you build a connection. And this connection never goes away. And everything what is a mind connection, as soon as you don't have the same, whatever, if teacher and kids connection fails, and the mind connection is gone, there's nothing what stays. And the same thing is when a family gets, for example, into mindfulness, their connection gets way deeper than spoken words or mind connections. And the same thing is in corporations. If you have one aim to make money together, to make a deal together, as soon as this deal is done, there's no connection because it was a pure mind connection. As soon as you build in whatever world, even the corporate world, a heart connection, then something stays. And this is what we see with kids, the bullying leaves and it doesn't come back.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I think there's that whole notion that it's hard to hate someone close up, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And that piece where there's a study from that was conducted with teachers who self-reported high anxiety and stress burnout. And they took the cortisol samples of the kids in their classrooms, and their cortisol levels were high. And then they did a control where, it was the opposite, where it was a calm teacher, cortisol levels were, pretty low.
Yeah.
But that whole coherence of just being with someone who's connected, and the real piece in education, Sigmar, I think that is so critical that people are focusing a lot, and especially now with COVID, right? It's exacerbated and sort of highlighted all the things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
But it's having relationships, and relationships only happen when you actually have heart coherence, right? There's a level of trust. And I think that piece, has been, obvious for lots of people, but I think, when policy makers and schools can switch a little bit about, let's focus on having a connection first, and then we can learn. Because if you and I are connected and I feel safe with you and we have a good relationship, I'm much more likely to try hard and try and maybe do something that I'm not comfortable doing in school, but I'm going to try. And even if I fail, I know that I'm not going to be made fun of because I've got such a good relationship, right?
Absolutely.
So I feel like there's that change.
Yeah. We just talked about online schooling right now, and both of my kids, I have two teenagers. One just started college, the other one is like in the last year of high school, and they're doing it really well. And they're sitting at home and they have all the tools. They're educated, so they're not emotionally abandoned at all, and they can explain themselves stuff. But I've seen that you have 5 principles of health and wellness, what you use in your foundation to work with people, it's body, breath, mind, attention, engagement. Do you have something what you would tell our listeners or parents who are completely open to a new form of educating their kids? What can they do at home? Is there any exercise what they can do to connect with their kids or even make this homeschooling more attractive? And is there anything out there what you would say this 5 principle they can do in an exercise with the kids or?
Yeah. So can I put a plug in for our website?
I got your
perfect. So we have these incredible facilitators on our team, and they are conducting these workshops always live. And one of the things that we found out that, people don't watch recordings. They want to go live just to have another connection. But a couple of strategies that you can do at home. One is just making sure that we start off with the body first, right? If they're sitting in front of the computer and they're getting agitated, it's all of that. I mean, right? Make sure that you're making time for movement. Make sure that they are, getting the pillars of health is really just trying to make sure they get good nutrition, stay hydrated, right? Get good sleep. I would say the 2 foundational things that are changing right now with this online schooling is kids are not sleeping as well because they're on computers at blue light all the time and even at night. But we do know that we are working on breath work, and we are actually focusing on nasal breathing. That's one of the main pieces that we've been focusing on is when we show some strategies where it's even in, even out, where you actually inhale to the count of 1 through your nose, exhale 1 through your nose. But all of the nasal breathing and making people aware that using the tool that you were given actually improves long-term health outcomes. And that's something that we've been sharing pretty robustly in the last year. But I think just those kinds of things, and just making sure that, if anything, you were talking earlier about people sort of putting out, a lot of anger and hate when you first posted those videos.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I will say is that when you start looking at all of the newspaper articles about learning loss and, we're in a detriment, and it's all that negative framing, Sigmar, that creates more fear and hate, right? So they're angry at schools, they're angry at teachers, they're angry at leaders. But actually, if we flip that and think about, they're at home. I know it's really challenging in many of the environments in which teachers are serving in underserved communities. But it's not that they've lost a year of learning. They're learning differently. They're learning different things, and trying to frame it in a way, if we can just help folks frame, and it takes a lot of energy. It's like a 20-to-1 ratio of positive to negative. Right. We got to keep practicing how to switch it so that it is a gratitude practice, that we are focusing on the good. And I do feel like that is one thing that parents can help with their kids, right? There's a lot of negativity that can sort of swirl. I'm guilty of it with my kids who are homeschooling, with online learning. But I feel like that whole idea of really making an intentional practice for gratitude and taking in the good and flipping what we would normally go straight to the negative because it's in our DNA to go negative,
Yeah.
and trying to figure out how to switch that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think this is what I see with my kids, because obviously stuff comes up where the negativity comes first, where they say, oh, like I haven't seen my friends and
Yeah.
I'm missing this class and I'm all by myself. But on the other hand, it's like there's good stuff what comes out of this. And both of my kids told me that they actually learning a lot.
Yeah.
And, it's not, and you just need to enforce this kind of things, to see the positive stuff.
Yeah.
And as parents, we need to go ahead. We cannot go, oh, I feel so bad. You cannot go to school. We are still hanging in this COVID like uncertainty, but it's really focusing on the positive and going forward. And it takes a lot on a family right now. And
Yeah.
this is why mindfulness and mindfulness education is so important. And sometimes I have the feeling that the parents can even learn from the kids.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
This is what we have seen now when we started teaching mindfulness in schools. We had one kid that even testified on a video. So we asked him, hey, you want to give us some like whatever, what is your feedback? And he said he went home to his mom and they had like whatever, some stuff going on, and she got like whatever excited and too excited maybe. And the kid said, Mom, love tune. And this was for me something where I said, oh, wow, he got it. He got it maybe before the parents do. And this is something where, I mean, I'm European and I raised American kids. So, and you're Asian, we are way stricter when it comes to educating kids. And we have like, yeah, we are more conservative, let's call it this way. And I remember with my son, we have been driving in the car and he didn't want to buckle up. He was 3 years old and he was standing, and back then I had like a surf car I was driving, and he was not safe. So he was standing in the middle of the seats. And I said to him 3 times, he should go back and buckle up. And he didn't. And then I said, do it, and he said to me, Daddy, you're hurting my feelings when you talk loud, and for a European, this was something I never heard this in Europe. Nobody would say this, but having kids, and probably this was also your work already in back then in the schools, because kids are speaking up about their emotions.
Yeah.
And this is actually the only way how you can get an emotional reaction from someone,
Yeah.
And the way I was raised was like very down, like whatever, there's one word, some person says something and everyone listens, and it's like a pyramid, it only went down. And I think very early you did a great job in your schools where you have been principal, because kids actually reflected on their emotions. And this goes back to the families, and this goes back to the communities. So I think it's a constant positive wheel that starts in motion.
Well, that was thank you for that. I grew up in that kind of household as well, right? Top down. My dad, whatever he was there, was very quiet for a long time, not too many words. We didn't share our feelings much. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I want to, one thing what I wanted to ask you again is also because you have this really in your mission statement. It starts with the heart.
Yeah.
And when you guys figured this out, what was the biggest challenge to really tell someone in the educational system it's the heart and not the mind?
I will say, because of I joined the foundation, was already sort of in place. And one of the things that we were able to do was, when we talked to superintendents and school districts, is that we do a lot of listening, right? And part of going through this process of connecting to the heart is that you listen. What are the issues that they're struggling with? And when it really came down to sort of like what they were really worried about, they were worried about their teachers burning out, quitting, leaving. And then that would lead to, classrooms being turned over with different substitutes and things. And because we focused on their stress, on their own management, on their own self, and their self-awareness, self-regulation, self-management, we focused on the adult piece. They were able to just connect how they were feeling when the stress was hitting, and naming their feelings, right? Naming when your body is speaking to you all the time. right? We know that body gives you feedback, whether it's in your shoulders, your jaws, if you're not sleeping well at night, your body is talking to you every moment of the day. And it's at what point in time do you notice what it's saying? And if you listen to what your body's telling you, you might need a break, you might need, you might need some water, you might need some, a walk around outside. But it's that mental push for them to connect their own selves to their heart, what their body is sort of communicating to them. And oftentimes with educators, because they're so busy, they don't actually listen to their bodies. So they'll put off the stress, they'll put off the stomach aches. They just sort of power through their day. And that's led to many, many long-term health issues. And you can see in all the data of retired teachers, retired principals and superintendents, high blood pressure, heart disease, cancers, the rates are astronomical for their long-term health. And part of that, just really reminding them that they matter, that they're important to a lot of people, but if they don't actually are not kind to themselves, that it makes it a really hard journey. And we really care about their long-term health. And that's part of how we sort of approach the work.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful way how you describe it, because it's like, it works for each and every one of us. It's not even the educators, but it's like, we don't listen to the basic things. When you go back into history, everyone was listening to the body, and whatever our modern society at one point just thinks the body doesn't matter, and you think you can detach both of them,
and that burnout, it's almost unfathomable, right? When people detach, and I did it before for a long, long time, but really just trying to think like, why am I so tired? Why does my neck hurt so much, right? All of those kinds of things. And at some point in time, if you start to ignore that, you don't have to feel like you get numb to it, right? And then instead of actually knowing, then they start taking medication when they don't feel well, right? People drink a lot. There's all kinds of other ways in which they're trying to numb even that numbness that they have, or that dull feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, I thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate sharing your wisdom. Great conversation. I want to do one thing real quick for our listeners. So what Cheech has told us also about the 5 principles, what they're teaching at Pure Edge, please go to pureedgeinc.org. And there's a lot of new stuff out there. And I would like a lot of listeners from us to also support Pure Edge. There's a reason why Lovetuner is doing it. And it helps the next generation. And this is where healing is happening, and where it's needed the most.
And I'm just so grateful for you and Lovetuner as well. And just so you know, all of our resources are open source and free. So there's never a charge for them. And that's also the reason why we can start with the heart, because we take that little bit of worry about the monetary constraints for school districts. So all of that is open source as well. So thank you so much for a great conversation. And I'm just so grateful.
Have a good one. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.